Hey everyone, welcome back to our online IELTS lesson. Today's lesson will be dedicated to IELTS listening. And we're going to talk about two types of listening questions today. So if you're ready, let's begin. And the two types of questions we're going to cover in today's lesson are here. The first one is, just a second. Let me use my pen. So the first one is a sentence completion. The second one is matching questions. Now let's move on and find out more about these two types of questions. So before we start talking about those two types of questions, we have a task here. This is about understanding signpost phrases. Understanding signpost phrases in IELTS listening is very important because signpost phrases usually tell you where the speaker is going and what he's going to say next. Right, now let's take a look at this task. It says the sentences below come from a lecture on history. Decide the function of the phrases in italics in sentences A to I and add them to the list. Note that some sentences may be used more than once. Okay, so the starting phrases has already been written here. They are E and H. Now let's take a look at E and H to find out about the starting phrases. So E is here. I'd like to begin this term's lectures with a few general questions. So the phrase I'd like to begin is a starting phrase in English. Next one was H. H starts with firstly. Firstly, why study history? So the rest of the phrases I'd like our YouTube viewers to find. I'll give you some time and I will reveal the answers. Okay, now I'm going to show you the answers that you can check them later and analyze these signpost phrases. So here are the correct answers. Now let's move on to the next pages. Next thing is about sentence completion questions. Answering sentence completion questions. This is the first task about sentence completion questions. Statements A to F give some facts about sentence completion tasks. Decide whether the statements are true or false. Now we're going to look at each of the statements together and find out if the statement is true or false. Because these statements actually tell us the things that we need to do while we're dealing with sentence completion type of question. Right, the statement number first, sorry, this is A and this is the first statement. You must always put words in the gaps. By the way, let's take a look at these sentence completion questions, and we're going to compare these statements with these sentence completion question along the way. Alright, so the first statement A says you must always put words in the gaps. Now let's take a look at these question. It says complete the sentences below, write one word or a number. So which means we don't always put words in the gaps. Sometimes we put numbers as well. So this statement is false. Next one is B. The instructions tell you how many words you need. We have just read it. The instruction here says one word or a number, so this one is true. C, sometimes you can put a number in the gap. So we have just seen this. We can put a number in the gap as well, so this one is true. D, the missing information is usually at the start of the sentence. Now let's take a look at these questions. Question number 1 is in the middle of the sentence. Number 2 is also in the middle. Number 3 is at the end of the sentence. So it's not always at the start of the sentence, right? So this one is false. Next, E. Gaps are located at the middle or end of the sentence. We have just discussed about it, so the answer is true. Last one, F. It is possible to guess what type of information is missing. This is actually true because this is about some kind of predictions that we can actually make about gaps. For example, parts of speech or some kind of synonyms or topics that we can use to fill the gap. Alright, so this task is finished right here, and now let's move on to the next page. Oh, by the way, before we move on to the next page, we have to do this task, this gap fill question task. But before I play the audio track, now let's take a look at the questions and underline the keywords, just as always we do. The first one, the handout, it's about handout. It covers some kind of general topics. So here the prediction here is we can either put an adjective or a number, because the handout covers some kind of general topics or some numbers of general topics. Next one, as well as students of history, there are students of at the lecture. So for the second question, we can basically predict that this is also about another kind of subject, right? Because here it says, as well as students of history, there are students of some kind of department at the lecture. And the last one, the lecture's own motivation for studying history is that she finds it, and here's the gap. So basically we can predict an adjective for this gap because this grammar structure usually requires an adjective. Alright, now let's listen to the audio track and try to find the answers.
Track 8. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to begin this term's lectures with a discussion of the various sub-disciplines in history. Before I do that, though, can I refer you to the handout you picked up on the way in? It deals with two general topics. The first is, why study history? And the second is, what is history? Neither of these questions has an easy answer. In fact, people have been asking these questions for as long as history has been studied. However, as you are mostly new students to this subject, and we have some students of economics with us also, I feel you should have some background to these basic questions. Anyway, it's all in the handout. I might add that for me personally, the most important reason for studying history is that I find it exciting. Our ancestors can remain, if we want them to, a mystery, a closed book, a blackness that we never see into. Or we can come to know what motivated them and discover how that led to the world we live in today.
Alright, so the listening audio is over. Now I'm going to reveal the answers so that you can compare your answers with the correct ones. So here are the correct answers. Later you can play back the video and analyze these answers. Now let's move on to the next page. So the next page is about matching questions. We have a matching question task here. Let's read it first. The inventions in the list come from different periods in history. Decide which period, A to C, they belong to. So we have different centuries here from A to C, and different inventions are right here. Now our task is to match these inventions with the centuries. And you don't really have to be very knowledgeable to find these answers. Just guess the inventions with the centuries. It's okay. So we have the telephone here, the automobile, the steam engine, the airplane, typewriter, and the wristwatch. Now I'll give you some time to put your own answers, and then I will reveal the correct answers. Alright, now let me show you the correct answers. You can check them later. You can actually Google them if you don't know much about these inventions. This is another task on matching questions. Now let's take a look at the question first. So here is the task. How does the lecturer decide each kind of history? We have different types of history here. A traditional type of history is marked with T. A modern type of history is marked with M, and a type of history which looks to the future is marked with F. And below we have another question. Write the correct letter T, M, or F next to questions 4 to 10. So T, M, or F, you already understood what they mean. We have to match them with these type of histories from 4 to 10 according to the lecture. We're going to listen to the lecture, of course. Right, before we listen to the lecturer, let's take a look at our technique. This technique is about matching questions. It says, read the question carefully in matching tasks. If the categories are related, decide what kind of words and phrases you would expect to hear. Listen for similar information in the recording. So the technique says, if the categories are related, decide what kind of words and phrases you would expect to hear. So we have different types of history here, from traditional, modern, and the story which looks to the future. Below this task we have another task that is related to the first task. This is another task, and it can also help us to deal with the first listening task. So this task basically about synonyms. Let's take a look at the first column. It says words in the question. So here are the words in the questions: traditional, modern, and looks to the future. Oh, just a second. All right, and possible words in the recording. Possible words in the recording. So to actually guess the correct answer, we have to look for some synonyms related to these three different words, right? So and this task basically deals with the synonyms. In this task, our job is to separate these words into three categories: traditional, modern, and looks to the future. The first one has been already chosen, which is visionary. Visionary can be a synonym of looks to the future, right? Right. Now I'd like you to look through all these words and put them in three categories, and later I'm going to reveal the answers. Alright, now we don't have a lot of time to deal with this task, that's why let's check the answers first. Traditional. For the traditional category, the words are old-fashioned, orthodox, classical, and conventional. These are all the synonyms of the word traditional. They mean the same as the word traditional. Next, for modern, present day, contemporary, new, up-to-date, and current. And the last one, a visionary, progressive, forward-looking. Alright, so we have done with this exercise. Now we're going to go back to our first task and we're going to listen to the lecturer and find out the correct answers. Remember, we have to put T, M, or F to these spaces. T means traditional type of history, M means a modern type of history, and F means a type of history which looks to the future. Now let's listen to the lecturer and find out the correct answers.
Track 9. You who have chosen to pursue the study of history are very fortunate. This is a time when we can talk not just about history, but histories. Traditionally, history was seen as one subject, and the subject matter was clear. It was about kings and queens and wars. Additionally, it was about states and empires or groups of states. This is what we now call political history. The subtopics were the parts of the world, for example, the history of China or of France. History has moved on somewhat, and we can learn a lot about current views of history by looking at the proposed lecture topics in our leading universities. In fact, you'll see that even the simplest definition of history, that it is about what happened in the past, is up for grabs. Some of the more, how shall I put it, progressive areas of study are as much about what should happen in the future. One example of this is the field of postmodern history. Likewise, feminist history looks at the past to make sure the future will be different, and it uses the past to assist in its efforts to make the future as it wants it to be. Somewhere in the middle of these two extremes lie a range of areas of study which have developed over the modern period, replacing the traditional idea of political history. These are by now mostly well established. You can study social history or economic history. Social history asks about ordinary people and their lives, not just their daily lives, but their contribution to changes in our society. Ordinary people have desires and wishes which they try to put into effect, and this has a massive impact on social development, which was not fully understood in the classical study of history. By the way, one area of conventional history, which I forgot to mention, but which has had a resurgence of interest in recent years, is the area of military history. This was, of course, of great practical use in more violent times, and unfortunately has become of increasing use and interest, academically and practically, in our own times. By the way, there's a new series of lectures on military history in our department, as if to demonstrate the truth of what I've just said. Ethnic and multicultural history are further examples of kinds of history which, like social history, differ from the orthodox forms. Ethnic history is a present-day concern which concentrates on the value systems and beliefs of a people, usually a minority people, which were ignored in the rapid forward march of the rich and powerful nations and states. How various ethnic groups live together and how their traditions change and develop is the subject of its contemporary cousin, multicultural history. In summary, as I said, you are fortunate to have such a wide choice of things to study in the fields of history. Choose wisely. And finally, it only remains for me to wish you good luck in your studies.
Alright, this is the end of the listening track. If you have already marked your own answers, I'm going to show you the correct answers. So here are the correct answers. Later you can play back the audio, the video as well, and analyze all of these answers. For today, that's all. I hope these lesson was useful for you on sentence completion and matching question tasks. I'll come back with some more question types and some more lessons on IELTS. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.